Welcome to the Heartification Podcast, where I interview people on how art has affected their lives and what it means to them. Art has a very special place in my life. It not only makes me feel happy, but it allows me to make others feel special. This podcast is all about how art has made an impact on others' lives, for all ages, all backgrounds, and all walks of life. You can find more about this podcast guest in my show notes. Without further ado, let's welcome my next guest. He is a speaker, author, and America's #1 moneymaker. Please welcome my next guest, Naugle.
How are you? Happy to be on the show today.
I'm good. Yeah. Thank you so much for being on my podcast.
Oh, absolutely.
So the first question I always ask is, how do you define art?
How do I define art? Art is when people's ideas and dreams take shape into something that has form, something tangible. That would be art to me. Just like that picture behind you, that started as somebody's dream, somebody's vision, and then they took it and created that piece that hangs on your wall. But art comes in a lot of different forms, and I think it's just the ability for people to create something. And creation is, to me, one of the most powerful things that we all have the ability to do that changes our lives. Because if you just conform, nothing happens. But if you create, that picture takes shape and ends up on somebody's wall and changes somebody's mood. And gosh, could go on and on and on from there.
Yeah, definitely. Totally agree. Like, my definition is any way you're able to express yourself. And that painting is actually my painting.
Is it really? It's beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
I've spent a lot of time in the mountains and in the snow. So I'm like looking at it as you're saying that. And I'm just like, yeah, that's home right there.
Yeah, definitely. And what art forms are you exposed to?
I think we're all exposed to different art forms throughout life. I would say I'm exposed a lot to different art forms in wealth creation, because that's just the space I'm in. And I see a lot of very unique things that are being created and a lot of different art, in the form of, how people use wealth and create wealth. So I would say that's one way. Being an ex-pro athlete, snowboarding, you can look at that as being an art form and how that's taking shape. And I watch now the sport, I see how different people have evolved the sport. That's all just creation.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. And you are a former pro snowboarder. So how does art play a role in snowboarding?
Oh, it's everything from the graphics on the snowboards. I mean, I know a lot of the artists that did the artwork for a lot of the athletes, and that artwork isn't just a graphic that they did. It's a piece of their life. It's a story that they want to tell through the board. And the same thing for the clothing that they wear. I mean, think of all the T-shirts out there. I mean, it's somebody's vision, somebody's art takes shape on the form of a shirt, a sweatshirt, a jacket. Art form is also in the design of the clothing to keep us warmer and to be lighter and to be more breathable. I mean, that's all just different creations of different forms of art in different shapes. I think snowboarding from start to finish is an art form. It's an individual sport that really it's you and the mother nature out there, you and the obstacles that you face. You have to create what you want. It's no different than when you painted that. You had different obstacles to overcome to make that take shape. Well, in snowboarding, to do the things that we did, it was all just an art form. And our creativity is what guided us to somewhere. And it's what makes the best or the worst snowboarders is that creativity.
Yeah, I love that. And, when someone would look at snowboarding, they would just think it's a sport when actually there is an art involved. And, when I was younger, when art came to my mind, I would just think, it's painting, drawing, all the visual arts and dancing and stuff like that. When you actually think about it, and after I started realizing that art is an expression of different people, I started to see that everything around us is art. And that includes, snowboarding, even this computer, this light, everything is art because people have expressed themselves in and made this with their expression.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something unique that could be said about that. We all know Apple computers. If you really read Steve Jobs' book and you study how he did that, he got so infatuated with art, in these computers that everything about the computer, the materials that were used, the touch, the feel, the look, the colors made such a big difference. He literally I don't remember how long he spent trying to find the perfect white. But where the real art came in is what we don't see. Steve Jobs was so infatuated with the machine and his technology he built that he made it so that his engineers had to make the inside look as nice as the outside. And he made them sign the inside of a computer. Now, let's remember, an Apple computer or a Mac, you don't get to see the inside. The engineer did, though. And by them making the inside, an art form as beautiful as the outside, it made them take pride in what they had created more so than just what was seen by the eye.
Yeah, that's really cool. Do they still do that? Like sign the inside of the computer?
Don't know. I mean, they should, but I doubt they do. But I think the inside of I got a Mac here. I bet you the inside is as pretty as the outside if we were to crack that case.
Wow, that's awesome. I never knew that.
Yeah,
Um,
the book is fantastic. And that's the biggest thing I always loved about the computer is the attention to detail inside and out, even the things the eye will never see.
yeah, definitely. And how does snowboarding help you think creatively?
Snowboarding is creativity. The second your board hits the snow, you let go of all the problems in the world and you just go out there and you just create, and I'll go back to, just the thing. It's called The Strangest Secret in the World. Earl Nightingale did it, and you can watch it on YouTube, and it's a must. But he talks about the reason people are successful, whether it's snowboarding or any industry that you're in or anything you do. And he talks about the difference between success and failure. So I'm going to relate it back to snowboarding. The success to a snowboarder, really is created by one thing: creation. If you create what you want on that board, on that snow, doing the things you are because you let your mind be free and you dream it and then you just go do it, which isn't easy. It's not like, oh, I'm gonna just dream of doing a quad, rodeo or something. That just doesn't just happen. You got to practice it. But first you dreamed it and then you had the ambition to go out and get it. So that's the creation aspect. But the same can be true for failing or not succeeding in snowboarding and in life. And that really comes when we conform to other people saying, oh, you can't do that. Oh, you're going to go do that trick. There's no way you can do that. The jump's too small. It's too slow. You're not strong enough. Like whatever they say, they're trying to get you to conform to their failed reality, to their failed dreams. They never succeeded. So how can they tell us how to succeed and create what we want when they've never done it? And in life, I think that's the biggest reason why there's so few people that are successful in their own mind. It's because so few people actually create. Too many people conform to other people's failed realities.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. And you made the decision to leave the world of finance to have a show on HGTV. So, what was the creative thinking that led to this decision?
Oh, that one's a multidimensional, I guess you would say. I was already kind of burned out in the Wall Street world. There were some things that I had saw at a very high level that I really didn't like. So I started, when you're out there doing something, you have to be passionate. You have to be determined to actually go out and help other people. And there's things that I saw happening at the level I was at, not that I was doing, but that was happening in the industry that really didn't fit my view of how things should happen and my view of how I wanted to change people's lives. And so then I had this other thing that I was doing, which was, real estate and flipping houses, taking houses that were trash and making them beautiful. And that creation, I thrived on it. And I had the ability to go off and do a show on HGTV, or at least a pilot show. And I was able to create a destiny that I'd always wanted. I'd always wanted to have my own show. I became infatuated with it. So that creation drove me to that. So that when I hit that crossroad, if you will, where I had this comfy career, this advisory career where I made a lot of money. And now all of a sudden I'm looking over here where it's the unknown, but over here allowed me to create. Over here, I had to fit in a little square box, do what they wanted, say what they wanted. Don't do this, don't do that. I literally had to make a decision that what was most important, creation or conforming. And I just decided to go create. And the broker dealer basically said, you're either going to be a TV show star or you're going to be an advisor. Pick. I chose the path less chosen.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think like more people need to do that, go on the path that, not many people may go on. And last year we read a poem in school. I forget what it was called, but it was about like these two paths. And the narrator or the poet took the path that most people don't take. And I think people do that because they just want to follow the crowd. They don't want to be seen as like, an outsider or a failure. So they just go on, not doing what they love and just following what everyone else is doing when they should do what they love and take the creative path.
Yeah, but if you really boil it down, to kind of what I was saying earlier, that amounts to the 5%ers. Only 5% ever go off and create, their destiny or take that path less chosen. The 95%, which is a massively skewed number, way too high, it should never be that high, take that simple road where they just follow the path that everybody else is following. And that path typically leads to just people being unhappy with their life, leads to depression, leads to a lot of the things because they're not living what they were put here on earth to live. They're not doing what they feel they should be doing. They're just conforming and following everybody else. And it is more evident right now than ever before in my life. And I'm 44 years old, that you're seeing more and more people take the easy path, sitting there waiting for someone else to solve their problems. And very few are taking that path less chosen that ends in that picture right behind you of just a beautiful sight. But to get to that sight that picture, shows, in my mind, that journey there would not be an easy one. It's probably difficult. It's going through forests. It's getting lost. It's not an easy path, where the easy path would just be stay on the road where all the snow is cleared for you and you didn't have to work any harder, but that road leads you where everybody else is going.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. And you lost everything on two occasions. So, how did creativity help you rise again and find success?
Oh boy. Well, it didn't start with creativity. I didn't lose it all and then be like, all right, I'm going to be creative today. It started with sorrow. It started with blaming everybody. It started with feeling sorry for myself. It started with all the things that happen when we hit a low point in our life. And I think where creation came is where I realized, literally, because everybody at the low points in your life, you'll have some people saying, why can't you just do, why can't you just be normal? Just get a normal job, be normal, stop trying to do all these big things. But there's always a fire inside of all of us. And that fire can only be put out by us. So I think when you're at that point, that's that crossroad again, where you really have to say, why am I blaming everything else? And does that do anything for me? And, you get mad and all that. And it just keeps feeding it. Like when you really get at that point, which I was at twice, actually more than twice, but we'll just talk about those two. All that negativity, all those negative feelings just perpetuated, they multiplied, and it just made it worse and worse and worse. And literally there's some days, when you're at that point where you just don't want to get up anymore. But then that fire reignites and you get little glimpses of what it could be if you just didn't give up, if you just didn't conform. And I think that little fire never went out for me. So was it just this miraculous switch? No, it was a slow build. I'd have one little win and then I'd have another little win. And then I would take that win and I would share it with people to make someone else happy, or give to somebody else in a small way or a big way in some cases. And that just perpetuated. But then as you start building back up and you get back in that comfort zone in life, we get lackadaisical. We start getting an ego again. We start thinking, oh, I hit the bottom and I climbed back up. Well, the second you start focusing back on you and, oh, what can I have? How much more can I do? How much more money can I make? We stop focusing on what we're actually here to do, which is solve other people's problems, help other people get what they want out of life. And every single time in my life where I've only focused on me, more, has always nosedived me back to the bottom. And that last bottom for me was 2014. And it was the hardest bottom I ever did, because it was just kind of like I was way up here. I had big successes. And then all of a sudden it was like, a plane just going straight down. And man, it just felt like it never was going to end. And when it hit, I went back to that negative way of thinking, but then all of a sudden somebody offered an event, a postcard came and said, come to this event. And at that event, I saw glimpses of hope. And ever since that point, I've literally just followed those glimpses. And I had a miraculous thing, mentor at an event that I couldn't afford to be at, that I paid to be at because I knew I had to be there, said to me, gave me his best advice. He said, give your best stuff away for free. In other words, give first and worry about getting later, or don't ever worry about getting. And ever since that point, I was 14, I focused everything on how much more can I give? How many more people's lives can I help without any, care about what I get out of it? And here's the thing, the most giving people are the most successful, because if you give as your sole purpose out here on earth. And when I say give, I don't just mean, everybody thinks, we live in a world where people start going off on a tangent where people think that giving means giving money. Like, oh, I got to give money, but I don't have any money, so I'll have to wait till I get money. No. Giving comes in every single shape, size, and color. Giving could just be me making you laugh. Like a second ago, you smiled. Like that was me giving to you. And if I could just keep making other people smile, changing one little thing in their life in the day that just makes that single second better, that's giving. It's all the same as giving $100 to them. Actually, $100 is probably less valuable than making them smile. If we change our focus to give, your life will be very rich. You will become very wealthy, because it's a law. And gravity is also a law, but you can't beat gravity. Jump off a high building and tell me what happens. Can you beat it? Nope. Well, you can't beat the law of giving either. The more you give, the more you get. You just got to focus on the give. I
Yeah,
went on a long
definitely.
tangent. I apologize.
That's okay. No, no, I love that. And even, at my pop-up event where people with disabilities and illnesses came to paint, they were all so happy, and they were just enjoying themselves. And it just made me feel so happy to see how I was able to affect so many people by just hosting an event where they could just come and paint and express themselves.
Yeah. And think of how that made you feel. Like by making them happy, like what joy did you get? And how do you replicate that joy? You just have to make more people happy. It made you want to do it over and over again. It made you never want that to end, because the way that their joy made you feel, that was pure creation. And that was what we're here on earth to do. We just have forgotten. We've lost our way.
Yeah, definitely. And I see speaking as an art form. So do you see speaking as an art form? And if so, why?
Yeah. And it's one that, people are, what do they say? People are more scared of speaking in front of a group of people than they are of dying, which is insane, because speaking to me is the way where I can, I can project and create, and I can say what I want. I can be who I want. I don't know. It just gives you I don't know what the hell it is. It's like snowboarding, the only thing I can relate in my life is speaking in front of a group and just having that feeling of being able to touch all those people in the audience is the same as, me lining up for a jump. And after I hit the jump and I do my trick and land, that feeling I got there when I landed, that success feeling is the same feeling I get when I walk off of a stage.
Yeah, definitely. And I think people are scared to speak in front of people because like it's human nature to like judge. Everyone's always judging everyone and giving their opinions, not knowing anything about them, but judging them based on what you see in like 2 minutes.
I love that you just said that. And I'm going to tell everybody this. I mean, I speak in front of tens of thousands of people, and I've been doing it for a long time. For me to speak in front of a group of thousands of people, I don't even think about it. I just run up on the stage and I do it. But there was a day back when I would speak in front of 10 people in like a network meeting, and 3 people before I had to go, my hands would get sweaty. I would get super warm. I would feel uncomfortable. And then when I'd start speaking, sometimes my mouth would get so dry, I couldn't even speak, or I'd get so choked up, I couldn't even get it out, where it's kind of almost like you're crying, but you're really just not able to get it out because you're so scared. Folks, like I started right where all of you did. Like anyone of you listening, like if you're afraid of speaking, so was I. I just practiced more than you. I got in front of a mirror. I went out in front of a group of no one, a bunch of empty chairs, and I stood up in front of it and I spoke and I practiced because I was too afraid to practice in front of people. And then I started in my mind visualizing that there was 100 people in the room, and I started talking to people in chairs. Kid you not. Like I would like be like, and so Jim, what is it you do for a living? And I'd go over, and Susie, so what do you think about what Jim just said? I would like interact with people that didn't exist, but my mind didn't know any different, folks. And, then right now, a lot of people are talking like this through Zoom. You are learning how to speak. You're getting very comfortable. The more you practice this, the more you'd be able to get in front of a group of 10,000, 100,000 people, and it would be no different. But it all starts with that first journey to practicing.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. Like my first speech about my business and everything, I was terrified. Like I had to go up on stage, and I don't know how many people there were. It was like an entrepreneur event, and my dad was there with me, and I was like panicking. I was like, "Oh my God, no, Dad, I don't want to go. Can we please leave?" I was like almost about to cry. And then once I got up there, it was like, it's not that bad.
Mm-hmm.
This is fine. And even when I started my podcast, I always used to get like so nervous to talk to these strangers and adults that I never ever talked to before and never even met. But now, it's just okay, hop on a podcast, have a conversation. And, it's so much easier than before.
Heck yeah. And it just get easier and easier, and you'll get more and more creative, and you'll be able to be, just an influence to so many other people. But it all starts with that first experience.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that goes for anything. Like even let's take, snowboarding. When you first start out, you're not like you can't do a bunch of flips. Like I don't really know the tricks. I don't really know snowboarding, but all these different tricks and things you can do with snowboarding. The first time you get on a snowboard, that's not going to happen right away. You get that with practice. And it's the same thing as, speaking and painting and podcasting and everything.
Absolutely. My first time on the snowboard on a real hill, like a real mountain, like resort, I went up and I couldn't do it. And I almost quit. I literally wanted to walk down the hill. And there was something inside me that just said, nah, this isn't for you. But then my friend said, well, here, come on, do one more. Cause I was soaked. I was miserable. I was sore. He said, come up one more time. And he just gave me a couple pointers and it just slowly started to click. And, but like, can you imagine like where would I be today if I decided on that one terrible experience, that first run, to quit? Let's say I went down to the lodge and I just sat there soaking wet and miserable and sore and just said, I'm just not going to go up again. How many people do that? How many people give up before they even get started? That could have been me. Could have been me. And we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah, definitely. It's amazing to think how, if you look back into the past, if you had not made that one decision, how your life would be like affected by a lot. Like you wouldn't have these experiences that you've had. Like if I had never so the inspiration behind Hard Vacation is in 2018, I went to India and my grandpa had shown me these postcards, and on the postcards were paintings. And they were painted by those with disabilities and illnesses. And, that's what inspired me to create my business. So, but I keep thinking, like, what if I never gone to India that time? What if my grandpa had never shown me those postcards? Like, none of this would have happened. I wouldn't have met so many of these amazing people. I wouldn't have, even thought of doing this because I wouldn't have the inspiration.
Yeah. I mean, anything we ask of life, life will give us, but we got to ask first.
Yeah. And I see writing as an art form. So do you feel you were able to express yourself when you were writing your books?
I was, but I'm a terrible writer. And like this is something I'm working on. I'm writing my next book now. We're just starting it, so it'll be my 4th book. And I suck at writing. I'm a terrible speller. My grammar's awful. I have all these ideas in my head and I don't always know how to get them onto paper. So what I have found is that since I'm not good at something, it's not my superpower, it's not my strength, and it's not something I truly enjoy and am passionate about, which is the writing aspect. I enjoy telling the stories. I enjoy, kind of coming up with the content in the structure of what the book will do. Like I'm always focused on, if I'm going to write a book, what impact is that book going to have on someone's life? That's what I think about. How I get those, letters and words on the page, it's just not something I'm good at. So what I found after my first book, because I wrote my first book and it was terrible, and I gave it to my wife, who's really good with grammar and always picks on me for not being able to spell. She rewrote the book, and that's what launched. But every book thereafter, I have just told the stories, and I have worked with somebody that's got a superpower of putting words on paper. So sometimes we need to really get out of the way of the things that we're not good at and focus on the things we are. But just because you're not a good writer, just because you're not good at spelling, just because you're not good at grammar or putting words on paper in the right way, doesn't mean you shouldn't write a book. Your story is probably a story everybody needs to hear, but you get in your own way thinking you have to write the book when you can just tell that story to somebody else that's good at that and they will write it. And that's how I've done it.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. And art can be therapeutic and it can help people through difficult times. So, has art ever helped you through a difficult situation?
Absolutely. I'm very artistic. I believe that everything I explain, if you ever followed my stuff, I draw a lot. And since a little kid, we didn't have much, but my mom always taught me to dream. And how she taught me to dream is she bought me paper and pencils and colored pencils, and I would go in and draw what I was thinking and dreaming about. And as I did that, and I kept drawing it in school, I draw it on the Trapper Keepers, and I was always doodling the things that were in my mind that I wanted, whether it's a 4-wheeler, a skateboard, a snowboard, a dirt bike. And the funniest thing is because I never let those things, die. I just kept drawing them and dreaming about them and thinking about them. They actually all became real. The things that I shouldn't have had, I was able to have because I never gave up on those thoughts, those dreams, and they materialized just like they always will. So drawing for me is probably far more important than it is for some other people because it's just been in my life since a young kid and it's all I had back then. But I've also realized that those pictures, like the picture behind you, that thought will become real because you put that there. I don't know if you've been at that place or if that was from a picture, but what you don't know yet is if you keep focusing on that painting, that picture you drew, you will be standing there looking at that exact site, whether you like it or not, or want it or think you can have it. It has to happen because you never gave up on it.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. And are you attracted to any particular artist?
Yeah, lots of them. Am I going to be able to tell you the names? No. One of my good friends, Blair Russin, He is an unbelievable artist, and the way he puts paint on a paper to tell a story is miraculous to me. So I really love his art. There's a bunch of abstract artists, and again, their names will elude me, that I love. And even though their art really doesn't mean anything to anybody else, to me, I find something in certain pieces of art through the color and the way, that they paint it, that I love. There's really no art that I don't like. I just am drawn to certain things that are the unknowns that I make the known in my own way. And that might not be what the artist meant that picture to be, but to me, it meant something. And that's what art is.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. And are you attracted to any particular art form?
I like abstract art. So I've been drawn to abstract art. And I also, as funny as this is, like there's a lot of new artists that are doing things with black and white. I've always felt like I've lived in a black and white world, but then in those paintings that they do with black and white, or the picture, let's just call it a picture, they'll pop color in there, and the color will be like one specific piece. And I just love those. Bansky would be one that would really ring out to me. I love his artwork. It's the simplicity of it. And again, I don't follow artists, so I don't really know the other names. Joseph Berquist, a friend of mine from school, he always had a way of taking something, like let's say a car, and he did this Audi Quattro, which is my dream car that I ended up owning. And he dismantled the car and he painted it in a way that like it was the pieces of the car in an abstract form. And that's what I love.
Wow, yeah, that's really cool. And my Heartification project is all about giving back to the community. So how do you give back to the community?
I give every single day in small and big ways. Sometimes it's writing a check. Sometimes it's just giving away one of my books. Sometimes it's just calling somebody and just saying that I appreciate them. Sometimes it's doing something like right now, we'll talk about art. So I've got two people that I'm not friends with, but that inspire me. And I hired my friend Blair to paint 2 original pictures for these individuals. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mail it to them. They don't know it's coming, but it's going to be something unique, custom, just to something that inspired me that they did. And, when they open it, they get to have that moment, and I get to share in that moment with them. So that's just some of the ways. I mean, everything in my life is giving, from giving all my best stuff away for free, giving my books away for free, giving all my trainings away for free. It's just all acts of kindness and giving. And the more I do, the more I get.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. And how would you like people to get in touch with you?
It's easy. Just go to my website, chrisnaugle.com. Everything you need is on there, or everybody's on social media. So am I, on just about every platform. You can find me at the Chris Naugle, and you can follow me. You can see my journeys. You can see my art, because I'm always drawing. And then you can DM me, and I answer all my DMs myself.
That's awesome. Yeah, well, thank you so much for being on my podcast.
I appreciate it. It was my honor.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Remember, if you want to find out more about this guest, please go to my show notes where I have all the links needed. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe to my podcast series and help me by sharing it, leaving a rating, and a comment. I hope you join me on my next podcast. Bye for now.